This is John Cola with growingyourgreens.com. A very special treat for you today. I was at the farmer's market, my local farmer's market here, and I met Tyler Tebrich from Future Farms. And we got to talking about growing food and stuff, and he's like, hey man, why don't you come check out my farm? So I was like, yeah, it'd be great for my viewers to see what a real farmer's doing. And amazingly enough, he's using the square foot gardening method, so I got really excited. Let's go talk about your tomatoes. Like, your tomatoes are looking real good, and you have a special technique that you use on the tomatoes, right?
Yes, I do. I follow the square foot gardening technique of single stem tomato growing. Put all your energy into one stem instead of letting them bush out.
Cool, well let's go check it out. So Tyler has a totally different aspect than I have, like the aspect or the opinion of just let things grow and let them leaf out and let them do what they're gonna do. Number one, it's a lot less labor, because if you're gonna do what he has to do, it takes a lot of time to come out and pluck each branch, and then if you forget one day, then it overgrows and you gotta pluck a lot. And well, anyways, let's hear about what he has to say, and maybe one day when I get more time, I'll grow like this, because it does look really cool. So Tyler, tell us what you're doing here with your tomatoes.
So I'm growing my tomatoes up a single stem, and you give one tomato 1 square foot. The idea is that if you have a tomato plant growing up, all of its energy is going to one stem. That it will have the same exact root ball that it would have for the 20 different vines that you would have if you just let it bush out. Same root ball, but now you just have one stem instead of 20. So it's sending all of that energy into that single stem, which will produce a healthier fruit. You'll get tomatoes faster, and they should ripen quicker. So that's sort of the theory behind it. If you're going to use the square foot system and you let your tomatoes bush out, it takes up about 9 square feet per plant. This method right here takes up just 1 square foot. So here's a good example of what I'm talking about. This is 4 different tomato plants right here, each in 1 square foot. If you can imagine one tomato plant not being trimmed, it would take up this whole area, 9 square feet. It would bush out that much. But I've got 4 different plants growing in only 4 square feet. So what you gotta wrap your mind around is that you are having more plants for less square feet, which means more tomatoes. I mean, this is chock full of tomatoes right here. And if you had a plant that was just bushed out like crazy, that's fine too. You'd probably get the same amount of tomatoes, but you're taking up more area and you're shading out other crops. Now you can see I've got all these tomatoes on this stem right here. It's chock full of them. They're gonna turn, it's gonna be fine. They're just like a regular bush tomato. It's just, all I do is I just take away the side shoots. But look at all the space I have for my eggplants. You can see my eggplants are getting full sun, which is exactly what they need. There's no shading. If you're using traditional row crops, if you're gonna just grow a whole row of tomatoes, it's fine to let them bush out. There's no problem. You can let the tomatoes compete against each other. But if you're using the square foot method, you're growing different crops in a very small area. And for that reason, you have to let plants get the sunlight and the sun exposure that they need. And that's why we use the single stem method. That's why we want to create sun exposure and also give more energy to a single plant.
All right, so show us how you do this, Tyler.
Okay, so I'll take you through a couple plants, and like John was saying, it is a lot of work. I'd say that for me it's a lot of work because I'm a farmer, so like I've got about 30 different tomato plants here, which isn't even that many. But yeah, you go out about once a week, twice a week, and you just trim back the side shoots. It only takes about an hour. So here's a side shoot right here, and what they do is they grow in the spots in between the leaf and a stem, and all you got to do is just rip it out.
But look, you're giving up all these potential tomatoes right here.
The reason why you're doing that though is because you want the energy to go into the fruit that's already there. This might not even make it to the season's end, and this one little stem right here would grow into a whole new tomato. I mean, this stem is essentially what this would be as well. You know what I mean? This will grow into its own really large vine, and essentially you're taking up space. And you can see here, right here, this is another side shoot right here.
Or they're called suckers, right?
Suckers. It's coming in through this stem, so it's creating another like tomato vine. And I don't want that because I don't want it to take out space. I'd sacrifice a few tomatoes to allow my other plants to get their sun. And also, like I said, more energy to the tomato that's growing there. So let me take you around to the side here, and I'll show you another example of a rather large vine. And the reason why this is so big is because I haven't had time to get out here. I might have actually, let's see, did I have intention to? All right, I'll explain this. It looks like last week I discovered that there was a really large sucker, side shoot sucker, whatever you like to call them, growing out of the main stem. As you can see, this is the main stem right here, if you follow my finger. And I like to call them little armpits. In the armpit of the leaf and the main stem, that's a sucker. That right there would become a huge vine. And that's fine. If you want to let it vine out, that's your choice. But I don't want to. So I take it and I just peel it off like that. It's really easy. They call it pinching, but it's not really pinching. It's kind of wiggling until it falls off. Now this side sucker right here, the reason why I didn't take it out was because I discovered it not too late. I just found that it had a bunch of flowers that were already flowering. So what I did is I topped it off. There was a whole vine growing here, and I just chopped that off. So this won't grow any more vine. This is done now. It's gonna just produce some tomatoes right here where you see these flowers, and thus it won't. If I would have not chopped it off here, this would have vined out like crazy, which is okay if you want that to. If that's how you want to do it. Another technique that a lot of farmers do, and I'll show you. Here's another perfect example of a side shoot coming up. There's two of them here. And these things grow fast. In 90-degree weather, this thing in 2 days would be this, or 2 or 3 days would be twice the size. Under the right conditions, these vines just grow like crazy. So what you do is just wiggle it back and forth, take it off, like that. And you see the other one growing here in the armpit. Wiggle it, take it off. Trim your tomatoes. It really is. And even if you do, like John was saying, like the bush variety where you just let it go crazy, towards the end of the season, it's a really good idea to just start trimming back those extra vines. The reason is because you want to get your
fruit ripe.
You want your fruit to ripen by the frost. And let me show you two things to keep in mind. Like what I just did here is I made a mistake. If you're not delicate around the flowers, you can sometimes break them off. That's a tomato that's now broken off. Not a big deal. It happens. If you're gonna vine your tomatoes, be very, very aware of the flowers. They're really delicate and they break very easily. It's really frustrating if you're breaking them. So when you're weaving them in and out of the trellis netting, just be really careful. And if you're afraid to weave it, just take some nylon string or take some thick string and just tie them up to the trellis. Just be very aware that the flower is where the tomato is going to grow. Let's see. Okay, this is what a lot of farmers do at the end of the season. So today is September 11th. Now, I'm not exactly. I don't know. I'm sort of debating whether or not I should do this or not. Just because I'm not sure when our frost is coming. Last year our frost was somewhere around October 30th, November 5th. What a lot of growers will do is they will actually top off their tomato plant. And a lot of single stem growers, it's really easy to do if you're growing up a single stem. And what that means is you just cut the top of the vine, and that's where it's producing its new vine and new fruit. And you can see actually the new fruit coming in right here, the flowers. That's what those will become tomatoes. If you chop it off there, it's not going to grow anymore. So all that energy is going to go into these 15 tomatoes right here. And you know, if you've got 15 tomatoes here and 15 tomatoes here, 15 here, you've got 60 tomatoes on a 4x4 foot trellis. All of that energy is going to hopefully get you tomatoes before the first frost. And a lot of tomato plants will survive a few light frosts. So, but yeah, my point is that a lot of single stem growers and bush growers will top off their tomato plants at the end of the season, just because they want that fruit to set. You can see I've got some little tomatoes here And it would probably be a very good idea to top off the plant. That way no more energy is going into the production of new vines. Now, with that said, if you do top off a plant, you still have to go around to the armpits, is what I call them, the areas in between the stem and the leaves, and peel back those suckers.
Here's a double sucker. It looks like you went through this armpit,
Yeah.
you got it, and now it just said, hey, I'm growing another one, sucker.
Exactly. Yeah. So here you go. You just pull it off right there. Easy. And like I was saying, if this is a single stem, and even if you have topped off the plant, it's the plant's biological and genetic trait is to make new vines. It wants to create as much fruit as possible. The problem is that our weather isn't conducive for the tomato plant to grow year round. If this was in a tropical region, we could let these plants just vine for ages. And but no, we kind of we have a specific time parameter in which we can grow our tomatoes, and that's why we go to these extraordinary lengths to ensure that we get a healthy harvest. And so my main point is that even if you have topped off the tomato plant, it's still going to continue to grow new side suckers. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely agree with what Tyler's saying. He grows, looks like, I mean, I see maybe a couple of cherry varieties, but he grows a lot of big tomatoes. And probably if you're growing big tomatoes, and I don't because I just haven't had luck with them, and probably because I haven't done the single stem method. If you do grow big tomatoes, I'd probably encourage the single stem. But if you're growing cherries, I probably wouldn't recommend it so much because cherries produce so many flowers and then they produce fruit so quick. And if you're cutting off all the suckers, then your fruit's already going to be ripe, and then you're not going to have any more flowers to grow. What do you think about that, Tyler?
There's a reason why John's correct there, and there's two different types of tomatoes. There's determinate tomatoes and indeterminate. And there are varieties of cherry tomatoes that are indeterminate, but with most cherry tomato varieties are determinate flowers. Determinate plants. So that means that all of their fruit bears at the same time. And generally they'll go through 2 or 3 cycles of bearing fruit, which it's kind of counter to what I just said, but it will be within a few weeks. And that first fruit is really good. The second one's not as good, and the third one, you have even less. So what that means is that you see all these flowers on this vine. This is just going to keep vining. A determinate tomato plant, like a cherry tomato, all those flowers are flowering and blossoming at the same time. You're going to get your tomatoes around the same time, which is really nice. Commercial growers, they grow a lot of determinate big varieties because they can go through there with their machines and just pick up the tomatoes right out. And that's why because they're all ripe at the same time. As where the indeterminate varieties, you're going to get things, you'll get one ripe on a vine and you won't get another one for a week or so. So, and you can, if you want to take a look here, you can see how many, you can kind of just follow up the stem. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tomatoes on one plant, and then you go over here, you've got another 10 over here. So, you're getting about, I honestly can't say how many tomatoes I'm going to get from just this 4x4 foot 4 plant.
And that's 4 plants, yeah.
You might be able to get up to 60 tomatoes, maybe even more under perfect growing conditions, maybe 100 tomatoes.
So here's one of Tyler's plants here. It's just a single stem, and you could take a look. This thing is loaded with tomatoes. They all ripen up at different times. This one looks like it's ready to get harvested here, and just follow this stem up, and you can see. There's nice clusters at each different point. Lots of tomatoes that are going to ripen up, so you could really yield a lot of produce with one tomato plant if you do the right method. And as I said many times, I encourage people to grow the cherry tomatoes because they're more hassle-free. I find that you'll have better success, especially if you don't have the nice heat and you're not really staying on top of it like Tyler does here. So lazy man tomatoes or cherry tomatoes, and that's my tomato.
They're easy to grow, and their taste really good too. So there's nothing wrong with letting your plants bush.
I hope you've enjoyed our visit here to Future Farm with Tyler, and he's invited me back to come back for future episodes. So he's open to having people visit his farm and share his knowledge, his wealth of knowledge, through email. You can contact him at helpinglletterU&grow. So helpingyougrow@gmail.com. So once again, this is John Kohler from growingyourgreens.com, and keep on growing.